This session is a mouthful. Arcade-style real money gaming, gold rush, or money pit. My adventure into real money gaming. I have a whole bunch of stats of my experience. Try to include a lot of real-world stuff as opposed to just general observations of the experience of launching stuff. First off, who am I? Why am I up here? I've been in the industry over 20 years. I graduated high school at 14 and started my career in the industry, so I'm a mega nerd and will likely die alone, but I'm okay with that. I produced and directed games for Scopely, Electronic Arts, Activision. I've had 10 #1 games on mobile and 14 top 5 console games. So I spent my whole career in gaming and never really had an interest in casino until I was approached by Gamblit, and they explained what they were doing, which is basically taking arcade-style and mobile games and bringing those into the casino floor, as well as online in the real money space. Slots, those sorts of things never interested me, but this style of gaming I definitely had a lot of interest in. So when I first jumped into real money gaming, I thought it was going to be sort of the Scrooge McDuck into the money pit, just like money flying everywhere and super easy. The reality of launching arcade-style games in the real money space online was a little bit more like walking into Mordor. It was treacherous and scary and difficult and slow and complicated and all these things that I didn't really expect. So first off, let's look at the real money market today for mobile. So it is legal in the USA. It's currently legal in Nevada, New Jersey, and Delaware. So how big is that business? How many people are playing? Well, it kind of equates to a couple of tumbleweeds, not a lot of money, pretty small market, not a lot of people doing very much in the space. Now, however, in the UK, it's a little different. It's more like having a cash fight with each other. It's a much bigger market. So let's look at some stats from last year of what that market actually is like. So right now, as of last year, the UK market has about, total for gambling, including land-based, they're at about 16.4 million gamblers and 11 billion pounds of revenue. Now online is a pretty big market by itself. Casinos at $1 billion. Sports betting is about 1.1 billion, and other is 259 million pounds. They have a little over 7 million active users, pretty close male and female skewed, and then a pretty good mix across age ranges, as well as pretty well split across Apple and Android. And then apparently some people still use BlackBerry and Windows, which really makes me laugh. So in the mobile freemium market in the UK, they're at 548 million pounds, and they have about 20 million mobile freemium players. So obviously less players, but a lot more money shifting hands in the real money market online in the UK. So what that equates to is that mobile online gambling is basically 4 times the revenue of mobile gambling in the UK. So basically you do a little Liz Lemon cash dance and go, okay, there's definitely some good opportunity here if you know how to tap into that market. We launched at Gamblit 7 games in 2015. They were all casual gamblified games. What does that mean? We're taking known game mechanics and we're adding basically a gambling layer on top of it. So we launched word games, we launched action games, we launched puzzle games, kind of a wide variety of stuff to sort of test and see what does the market like, right? Right now it's very slots, blackjack, poker, traditional casino product. We wanted to go out there with games that were totally different. It'd be ludicrous to try to compete in that existing market with those types of games because they have way bigger budgets, way more marketing dollars, and way more stuff than my small company in the US could ever hope to compete with. So what did we learn from that? We learned a lot of things. We had an expectation thinking that all of our experience from launching these games in the freemium space, we could use our same analytics principles and the same sort of data sets, and we could sort of compare. The reality is that you're looking at a very different customer in a very different market. So none of the sort of expectations we went with were actually true. What were the biggest differences? So getting a conversion from a free trial user to go into RMG and to actually go through the sign-up process and put in money is much harder to find. We found that a lot of our frequency and sort of retention metrics that we used in the freemium space for the same types of games just didn't apply to real money, right? The average real money user does not play a game 5 times a day. Typically, they're coming in once a week after a paycheck or something, maybe on a Friday night, they want to relax. They want to play. They want to have a gambling experience. It's not the same as your freemium metric. So a great game, your retention could be okay. They play once a week. It's just it's very different from freemium. The money is very different. You know, an LTV on one game with a developer that we spoke to, their LTV in casual was I think it was like $1.25. But then their real money LTV was $85. So there's like a massive difference in the amount of money that you can get from a user in the exact same game, just real money versus casual. So, you know, starting out, it sort of felt like we're taking on this big sumo wrestler, and we're like a little kid, and oh God, this is going to be really, really hard. And that's pretty much how I felt when we launched our first title and we started learning. A lot of difficulties came about. User acquisition in a crowded market, tons of competition, and I feel like everybody else had way more money than we did. So it was very difficult to just try to get users into the apps to begin with. We were using a lot of casual channels to target players that hopefully had an interest in real money, but also in casual style games. So we're spending about an average of $5 per user acquired. There's a lot of legal restrictions with advertising a real money game, which I hadn't thought about going into this, right? There's only so many ad networks that you can work with. There's only so many people that will run ads that can guarantee that you're advertising to an 18+ crowd. I really don't want to go into the UK and be thrown into jail the minute I step ground there, which it could happen if I did things wrong. Installs in your casual ad channels, though, sometimes mean that you get players who think the game looks fun, they download it, and then they don't want a real money experience. They just want a casual experience. So you play your trial mode for a bit, and they're like, meh, and then delete, and okay, now you're out $5 and $5 and $5 and $5. We definitely learned quickly that with advertising, we need to be very clear with like real money game, win cash, etc., gambling, like right there in the ad. Otherwise, you just get users that you didn't really want to pay for to begin with. The sign-up process, complicated, right? We are very used to simple processes with signing up for things or downloading things. With a real money product, and especially when you're targeting more casual users, they don't realize that they have to go through and enter their name and location and get a GPS check and an age check and a background check to make sure that they're not a problem gambler, to make sure that they're legal age, to make sure they're not laundering money, right? All those things we have to do, which when you're launching an arcade social game and they're used to no sign-up process or a Facebook button, it's a very complicated step for them to get used to. No App Store featuring. As awesome as it is that iTunes will have all of our apps, well, they're not going to make any money from us, because the minute that people start monetizing a real money game, you're on our system. You're not going through Apple, and Apple doesn't make money, and Apple's like, I'm not going to feature you. So that kind of sucks. After the first game, I kind of felt like that, just getting kind of tossed around, and ow, this is a little painful. Some more of the difficulties. Google, you can't put any Android gambling apps in their app store. You have to sideload or go through some weird route. I personally do not understand this, because Google likes taking tens of millions of dollars a month from real money advertisers on Google, and yet when it comes to their app store, they're like, oh no, we couldn't possibly. I'm like, oh, all right, that's not fair, but whatever. So there's half the market just gone off the bat, unless you want to sideload, which most users don't want to touch sideloading anyway. All of our competitors, they are multi-million-dollar projects. They have way more money and big licenses and all kinds of stuff with their traditional casino product, which for a gamer like me is boring, but yet I'm still technically, with my company, competing with them. A lot of casual users downloaded it, didn't want real money, quickly left. So really, at the end of the day, sort of being a casual style game in the real money market and trailblazing, kind of at the end of the day, I sort of felt like I was doing this like weird sport dance that nobody really knew what it was, but it was somewhat intriguing. This was really just an excuse to put that GIF up there because I love that GIF. With each launch, we definitely got stronger. After launching 7 games, learned a lot more, started to feel like we could sort of take that sumo wrestler on. We definitely learned a lot of things that did work well, right? There's a higher percentage of whales. If you compare casual to real money, you're basically an entire market of whales. It's a very, very different experience. Overall, a higher amount of money of deposit and coin in. You're getting a lot more money from less customers, which is kind of an awesome thing. In casual RMG, we have little to no competition. Not many other people are trying this. Not many other people have experimented with it. So not having that direct competition for exactly what we're doing has definitely helped us a lot. Entry bar is very high, right? Versus a freemium game, you have to be licensed. You have to go through all those awesomely difficult things to launch a real money game. And that keeps that level of difficulty to get in the market high, which means that we don't have the competition popping up every day. We definitely learned that social targeting worked best for us. Certainly Facebook advertising has been the best provider of quality users. Incentivized installs, stuff like that might work in a freemium game definitely does not work for us. Bonus matching deposits resulted in a 3x more signups for us for a real money deposit. So we learned certain things that our standards in the real money industry were very important for us as well. Found that RMG users were almost 4x as engaged in playing the games as the VC equivalent users were. So overall, we definitely learned, trailblazing takes time. It does not happen overnight. It's not something that you can learn quickly. It takes money. You need to be invested. You need to commit to multiple games. You need to commit to a life cycle. You need to commit to a certain amount of time. Freemium rules do not apply here. You can try, but it's probably not going to happen. Established RMG players may not be looking for a new experience. So the trick is, reaching out to them, finding those users, and trying until you can sort of find those users that do want more of that arcadey experience. In the world of Apple and Google Play, nobody wants extra legwork, so trying to have that sign-up process be as simple as possible has definitely been important for us. Everybody's used to a thumbprint, right, to pay for everything, and when you have to go through an personal information from a company you've probably never heard of, it's a layer that a lot of people don't want to go through, so making sure that's as simple as possible. Doing tutorials is really hard because you have to not only teach a game, but then you have to teach them the gambling mechanic as well, and that's not something that necessarily comes inherently natural to some people. So trying to keep your tutorials short, but keep them explanatory so they know how the gambling mechanic works is definitely a fine science that needs a lot of iteration. The market at the end of the day is huge if you can tap into it and figure out how to make it work for you, right? 4 times freemium just in the UK alone. So there's a lot of money being thrown around there that if you can figure out how to apply to can be huge. Being early to market has definitely been a big advantage for us, and that's definitely one thing that's been great for the business overall. There's been a lot of growth in the UK real money market, something that younger people are starting to adopt more, which is obviously great for us since our product tends to be a little bit younger skewing. You've got almost double the growth in the 2014 to 2015. And then the growth of people actually playing online RMG is growing about 10% year over year versus land-based growth, which is not really growing at all. So sort of like Mrs. Perry says, well, this is very different. This is kind of not what we expected, but it's definitely been fun. We did launch a game recently called Match 3 Evolution. It's a simple puzzle game where you kind of evolve different creatures. It's one of those games that's really quick to pick up and learn, takes a long time to master, has kind of a higher skill threshold. It has had so far our best engagement, our best conversion to real money deposit, and our best retention of any title that we've launched. We learned a lot of stuff. I've got a whole bunch of fun stats here. We found that things like server-side iteration was really important to be able to change things like minimum max bet amounts. The first-time user experience had our highest conversion, where most 80% of users were making through at least one full game. We averaged about 25 wagers per user, which was the highest of any title that we had. The first-time RMG deposit rate was just under 10%, which is pretty good, at least, especially compared to some of the other games we launched, which were like around 2 or 3%. We had a nice split between male and female. We had about an average user was gambling about 12 unique days in the life cycle, which is pretty good, and that was before doing any type of retention mechanics. And then the sort of unique mix of casual gameplay with gambling seemed to resonate really well. We had some good reviews and nice positive user feedback. So what's next for us? We are doubling down. We're doing fewer launches, but bigger. putting more into them. We're looking at new methods of user acquisition, trying to get creative with how we bring in our kind of unique customer. We're focusing on that market potential of a lot of untapped customers and the lack of competition in this space. And we're doing a lot more licenses and known partner games. So some of those include doing a match 3 game called Smoothie Blast. We've got a Playboy game that's going to be launching at the end of the year. It's an arcade style game. It's quite fun. And then we're taking known content. Catapult King is a game that was downloaded over 35 million times. It launched in 2012. It's featured twice on the App Store on Google Play. And we're working with the developer, Wicked Witch, to take that original game, add a gambling layer on top of it. We're launching it online in the UK in the real money space. And then we're taking that into land-based casinos where we're launching our new hardware in Q1 of next year. So we're giving that developer with this known IP, entirely new revenue stream, and we're giving consumers an experience they already know, a game they've already played, and they can download on their phone at any time, and just adding sort of a gambling layer onto it. So now with all that we've learned and all that we sort of have going forward, I feel a little bit more like the Avengers, kind of preparing for battle and kind of knowing what we're getting into. I often get asked here, what is the next big thing for real money, and especially for arcade-style real money games? And for us as a company, past with what we're doing online, that's definitely the casino market. It's massive, and it's largely unchanged over the last 100 years. So globally, land-based casinos are a $159 billion business. Mobile games is about $22 billion, so obviously it dwarfs it. U.S. casino market alone for land-based is $65 billion. Nevada alone has around 42 million visitors to casinos per year, so you have a huge audience coming in. Right now, slots players are aging out. The average age is in the late 50s, and they're not getting replaced. It's not like people suddenly turn to magic age and they're like, oh, I want to play slots. Someone like myself, I'm a millennial, I'm 35, I grew up playing video games. I'm never gonna all of a sudden be like, oh, I wanna sit there and hit one button and watch real spin. Like, it's just not inherently interesting to me. Playing Street Fighter in a casino, yes, interesting to me. Of course, I had to throw in the average slots player there on the right. Slot machine revenue is down 12.5% from 2007 to 2015. It's dropping year over year pretty steadily. Casinos are noticing this. It's one of the reasons that we're getting a lot of traction in the market. The first slot machine came out in 1887. Really hasn't changed a lot since. More licenses, bigger displays, visual, but the gameplay is still inherently the same. Yet the consumer and the market has changed considerably. So Vegas, in order to handle this age crisis, right, has changed the way that they're marketing themselves and the way they're selling themselves. Pool parties, nightclubs, all sorts of crazy ways to attract young people, right? Their number one demographic at most casinos is a 21 to 45-year-old. Most of those people have no interest in the gambling products that are currently offered there. So the people are going, they have a wagering rate of 21 to 35-year-olds of 2%. So 2% of that crowd actually gambles. Yet they are going to Vegas. 35% of 21 to 35-year-olds in the USA do go to Vegas. They are engaging in nightclubs, pool parties, etc. Barcades with classic arcade games are really popular. There's 21 to 45-year-olds. There's 4 or 5 now in LA. They keep popping up. They're packed on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. There's lines of half hour to an hour. So people have interest in those retro arcade games. Dave & Buster's is growing. They're opening 3 to 4 locations per year. You don't have to spend money on user acquisition because the people are already there, which is kind of awesome for me. And the operators are really excited to get social, interactive games that their consumers actually want to play. Slots makers are going, well, but we have Game of Thrones, and you can sit there and hit a button, and yeah, not so much. So in a perfect world, what I would love to see is mixing casinos with arcades, having pinball, having Street Fighter, having Mario Kart on a casino floor, and then hopefully, my friend Lakitu there would be raining money from the skies. All right, it's time for Q&A, and I will do my best to not look as confused as Mrs. Spears does often when she's on TV.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So question in terms of the future, it seems that there's obviously, you've run into the known roadblocks in the online world in terms of getting approvals, which is obviously a lot more complicated than it appears initially.
Yeah.
But you've now also talked about more of a traditional brick and mortar opportunity, and just wondering where your philosophy is at, your mindset is to, where are you going to concentrate? I mean, in some ways, it would say that there's probably more upside In terms of those barriers you talked about, people having to go through registration, qualify, understand the whole thing. When they're in a casino, they're already through that process. It's not your problem. It's your problem to get them, approved through GLI approved and all that sort of stuff. But once they're in there, it's traditional, right? So is it worth your energy or anyone's energy to go after? If you only could go after one market, which one would you bet on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, that's the reason we've been testing so many games. You notice I don't usually use the terminology like we've officially launched multiple games. We've tested them and we've been trying to figure out what works. And we haven't found a title that's a runaway smash hit that's making 5x ROI. So I think we'll continue testing multiple games online in the UK and seeing if we can find that niche and find a way to really tap into that market. But certainly big picture, when it comes to the business as a whole, we're definitely more focused on land-based now. And there's definitely more opportunity. There is much less competition, and while it's difficult to get a game through GLI, and we're building new hardware, and they're all multi-game devices, and there's a lot of things. There's skill games, right? There's all this stuff that haven't been reviewed or really seen before. It's still so much more potential, and it's a consumer that's eager and hungry and has money. And you're right, once they're on the floor, we know that they're of legal gambling age, and they can walk up and put $20 in the machine and pick a game and start playing. So it's definitely a much easier proposition in terms of engaging a consumer.
How challenging has it been to come up with game designs and math models where a really good, crazy player can't beat you time and again?
Very, very hard. I'd love to be like, it's easy, we have 100 games. No, it's really hard. We focus test stuff with all kinds of outside consumers several times a week. We bring in other people, we bring in experts, we do all sorts of things to try to figure out what type of game works. What is something that you can pick up in 60 seconds and know how to play? What is something that 3 drinks in that you're gonna be like, yeah, I'll put in $20 in that. That's one reason that I'm going after games like Catapult King, right? And we'll be announcing a couple more known kind of partner brands and games, because taking something that someone already plays every day, if they see that on a casino floor, they're gonna be a lot more apt to put in money and gamble on it if they feel like, oh, I've played that, I can win at it. But yeah, the reality is it's hard to get the math right. It's hard to get the user interface, the tutorial, all that experience when you're walking up to a machine right. Because my background, it's always been making games that you have a controller or you have a phone, right? And it's a very different experience on a casino floor with someone whose attention span is like -50.
Okay, we'll take one last question, and then Darion, I guess you can chat with some people after the talk. Here you go.
So is it a platform that wrap all your games, or you have the gambling like SDK that you put into each game separately?
I wish it was easy as like, here's an SDK, come bring your games to our platform and make money in casinos. The reality is that we're only signing a handful of partner games, and we're going very slow, and we're doing very much a quality over quantity process. And everything is a very hands-on experience where, for instance, Catapult King, we sit down and we have design, math experts, gambling experts, gameplay experts, and we look at, okay, this is Catapult King, like how can we gamify it? What's the best way? We work hand in hand with the dev team. So for example, this year we're only signing 4 partner games. Next year we'll probably do 8, following year we'll probably do something like 16, right? So we're growing, but everything is very hands-on process. Every game does launch on the same platform, but the process of gamblifying a known game is very much a hand-in-hand process to make sure that that particular experience is easy for the consumer, it's easy to play, it's easy to understand. Cool, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Darion.